Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have Rob returning to the pod. And thank you, first of all, Rob, because it's always a pleasure to have you on the pod. I actually take a lot from the sessions we do together, and I know that the listeners do. So thank you.
You're welcome, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. Always excited to do podcasts. I get asked to do quite a few, but I always love the ones in the bodybuilding world. I don't know. I've just got an affinity to it now after all those years. So, hey, It's great to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I think sometimes in the bodybuilding world, podcasts like what we're going to cover today, so talking about overcoming self-doubt and setbacks, it's maybe not touched on as much as it could be, but this is massive in the sport of bodybuilding, of course.
Absolutely, in any sport, but definitely in bodybuilding, there's so many ups and downs, and so much of the game is mental. It's not just about physical. So yeah, you've got to be able to overcome those ups and downs that inevitably will come along. I don't think there's one bodybuilder can say they've had a smooth run all the way through their whole career. It's inevitable. Injuries, blockages, could be problems at home, relationships, interpersonal relationships, work, whatever. There's always something. So it's about how do we get over that and how do you move forward?
Yeah, for sure. And when we talk about setbacks, I mean, I don't know how you would view it, but a lot of the time a setback, it could be a lesson, of course, or it could be, actually maybe you're putting this into your mind that you've had a setback and maybe it's not as bad as it seems, and that can escalate very quickly in our own mind.
Absolutely. And it is all about the mind, as you've quite rightly pointed out there. And listen, setbacks are always going to happen. We've just been talking about this off camera, haven't we, about the world and the financial meltdown that the world's in, and economic crisis, etc., etc. And listen, we said, you can have a doom, a woe is me type attitude, or you can have, hey, let's roll these up and let's go at it. Let's roll those sleeves up and let's go at it attitude. And it really is down to choice. If we really break it down and bring it to the bare basics, it is choice. And we do have choice as human beings. And sometimes people can say it's a bit flippant, Rob, there's some tough things I'm going through right now or whatever. And I get it. There is. We're human beings. And as I said before, you're allowed to have downtime. You're allowed to moan. You're allowed to whinge about it, but only for a certain amount of time. If you're going to do it all week, now you're being a victim. And if you're trying to achieve anything in life, in business or in your sport, you can't have a victim's mindset, because for one, as I said before, no one cares. And the sport doesn't care either. When you get on stage, you're going to be judged by what you present, period. And I've never seen a judge's scorecard that takes into account the journey up to the stage.
Yeah, of course.
No one's ever put extra marks. Well, she went through a breakup with her boyfriend, or, well, this one's having mental health issues, or, well, this one had to move house 2 times in their prep. Nobody cares. So if you want to be the elite, if you want to be right at the top of your sport, you've got to have a mindset that says, do you know what? There's an obstacle there. I've got to get over it. What do I do? What are my options? And like I said, you've got to be human. I get down. I get pissed off when things go wrong, but I've cultivated a way now, which clients who have worked with me directly will know, that literally nothing in the last 5 or 6 years that I can remember has got me down for more than 5 minutes.
And
because of some of the techniques we use to snap out of it, because when you really think about it, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. And really relevant that you said there about the judging panel, because again, it's something that I think maybe isn't spoken about as much as it should be, in regards to, when you go into a prep, there is always, I've never done a prep out of my whole 10 years that's gone completely smooth sailing, but the judges, like you say, don't really care. They're looking at the physiques on the stage. And I know myself judging, you just look at the athletes, you look at the bodies. So of course, this needs to be taken into consideration, that when you prep, doing it for the right reasons, getting to stage, completing your journey and competing is amazing in itself. And, you need to be able to bring it all together for that day, because you can't let these things affect you once you get on that stage.
Oh, massively. I mean, your limiting beliefs and the doubts, as we're talking about today, are standing in the way of you reaching your potential. And I talk a lot about mantras or just repeating something over and over again. Some people are triggered by words like mantras or meditation or whatever. And yeah, woo woo. And people don't realize that you're doing it anyway. Just take the title away from it if that's holding you back. But realize that you're doing it anyway. You're meditating of some kind. If you're daydreaming, if you ever found yourself daydreaming, looking out the window, you're meditating. And if you've ever said something over and over to yourself, you're saying a mantra. So just drop the titles if you can't handle that, and just realize that these things work for you. Now, as I said before, your limiting beliefs are standing in the way of your potential, and that can be a mantra for you. So when you're, maybe if someone's listening to this now and they're worried about something or lacking, they're having a lot of self-doubt about their prep or their off-season, even their journey, just say to yourself, this belief I'm having right now is standing in the way of my potential. Because your potential doesn't know what you're thinking. Your potential is inside of you. And everybody has got huge amount of potential, far and away above what they're actually living up to right now. And as I always say, you live up to the belief in your potential, not your potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Say that again. It's important. You live up to the belief in your potential, not your potential. You cannot go further than your belief in your potential.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to sum it up, isn't it? And hopefully, that will stick in, even if one listener hears that and it sticks in their head, because it's massive. Your self-talk is everything. You're the only, you're inside your own head, and everyone at some point will suffer from negative self-talk, I would say.
Yes.
It is so detrimental to your own progress and your own daily goings on, just general life. It's so hard to get through sometimes.
And you're right. It's every area of your life. It's not just your bodybuilding. It's every area. We all suffer from it. I still suffer from it, but you get better at it, and it's an ongoing journey. And there are tips, techniques, and ways of thinking that can help you overcome that self-doubt and those pesky limiting beliefs you've got that are holding you back and stopping you. And listen, these, I had, my story famously is I had a limiting belief that held me back for nearly 20 years. And it was the same limiting belief. It was just one sentence. It was just literally, I'm just Rob from Bramley in Leeds, this little estate with no degree, right? And I was like, that one line, I had no degree. I came from a council estate, held me back for 20 years. Because I wanted to coach. I always wanted to coach people, but I was doing great. I'd run my own businesses. I worked in corporate for over 10 years. I had over 400 staff underneath me at one of my jobs. I was doing great. But in my head, to coach people, I thought, I can't speak to people about psychological things or the brain, because who am I? I'm just this little black kid from the estate. Who's going to pay to listen to me, right? And back then, when I was growing up, it was very racist. It was tough time. It was the 80s. Had a limiting belief on me that I didn't even realize till I understood personal development later on. But that held me back. So what I've realized now is everybody's got that. Everybody's got a sentence or 2 or 5 or 10 in their head that is holding them back from achieving their potential. And it's about being able to grab that sentence and break it down and refute it, and see it for what it really is, that it's just a belief that was probably put there when you were a child, and overcome it and move forward and live up to your potential, or as close to your potential as you possibly can. And that's the challenge I try and do all the time for myself. And it's the challenge that for me, I want to help others with as well, because it held me back for 20 years. So my passion is now to help as many other people overcome their limiting beliefs, because people go to their grave with these, people go to their grave with something that's held them back, and they probably on their deathbed, they're thinking, why didn't I just have a go? Why didn't I go all in? And I mean all in. Why didn't I move house? Why didn't I leave that city? Why didn't I move that country that I always wanted to do? Why didn't I go traveling for 2 years like I wanted to do? Why didn't I go all in on that bodybuilding journey and really give it everything? Usually there's one sentence that's holding them back.
Yeah. And actually what you say there about childhood, you know, that sort of behavior and those thought processes coming from childhood, I always liken it to those Russian dolls. So, you know, you've got like the really tiny one in the middle and they get bigger. And I feel
I've
like,
got them in my cupboard here right now.
yeah, I feel it's quite a good almost analogy, because I've actually worked on myself a lot through my journey as a bodybuilder and tried to, you know, bring tools in to develop and progress and work on things that I was holding on from childhood. And I always say, you know, I've nurtured that little one in the middle there, and then the rest of them have almost disappeared. And then I've got my being now. And then that little one in the middle, I say to people, you know, it's about putting time to still nourish, maybe if you've had trauma in your childhood, if you've had things that you've had to deal with, trying to still recognize that, but not allowing it to hold you back, just nourishing it and seeing it for what it is.
Yeah. And it's a bit like layers of an onion. You've got to peel. Human nature is that you're peeling off these layers, because we've all got these layers that are built up over time. And
Yeah.
some of them are really strong and tough. And sometimes people are held back by what some kid said to you in the playground when you was 8 years old. And it's stuck with you ever since. And it's insane to think that that can happen. And I'm fascinated by that, obviously, because this is what I do. But human behavior is fascinating. That a lot of the stuff that happened to you between the ages of 0 and 8 are playing out in your adult life right now, and can happen and play out in your bodybuilding journey right now. It's not always just about the lifting of the weights, the doing the prep and all that. It's what you believe and think about yourself. That's what's holding lots of people back. And that's why when people are scrolling on Instagram, they see somebody else or something, oh, I'll never be as good as that. Oh, there's just no point. What's the point? You know, that doesn't come from looking at that person and thinking, wow, she looks amazing. That comes from something else in the past. And it's about overcoming that. And again, like I said, not allowing that to stand in the way of your potential.
Because of course, school years, you know, I got bullied myself. I don't know if you did, but it's very, very common, you know. Yeah. And like you say, one sentence can stick with you, or an action from another. And actually, you know, the people that bullied me at school, when I see where they're at now, it's a night and day difference to where I'm at. And I think, well, actually, you know, sometimes I believe in karma, you know, sometimes you think, well, actually, you know, maybe you can take strength from that rather than let it hold you back.
Absolutely. And I think it's super important to realize where it came from, because then that's the beginning of the journey of breaking the hoodoo over you, because you realize, hold on a minute, am I going to live my life based on something that happened 30, 20, 15 years ago? And then you can start the process of saying the right things that are going to get you past it, and doing the right actions that are going to get you past it. And it's different for everyone. It's kind of a bespoke thing, but some people need certain things. Some people, once you've found and identified the problem, they're almost cured. It's like they go, oh shit, is that all it is? Oh right, okay. And they just fly. Other people, they need a lot of work, go on an ongoing basis over maybe a year or 2 years, and then they come through it and start to progress. But everybody's different. But it doesn't matter what the problem is or what the obstacle is. There's a great book by Marie Forleo, and it's called Everything is Figure Outable. And pardon me, in there she talks a lot about that, about overcoming these obstacles and getting past them. Another fantastic book for anyone who's into that stuff. You should be, if you want to be a champion, read and study. But is The Obstacle is the Way, which is another fantastic book. But they both talk about getting past these almost what seemingly insurmountable obstacles, but it's just a shift in mindset. Everything they're saying is the same thing I've been teaching for years. It's just a shift in mindset. It is, like we said at the beginning, it ultimately, when all the crap's got out of the way, it's down to choice. There comes a point where you go, right, are you going to roll your sleeves up and go, or are you going to sit and wallow in self-pity and doubt? And once you've identified it, once you've done the techniques and the things to overcome it, then there comes a point where you've got to act. And action for me is the best way to get over self-doubt. Doing something, no matter how small the action is, start by doing something. And another one that I talk about with people when they've got self-doubt is remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. So start doing what you're doing, but remind yourself of your why. Remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, and really immerse yourself into it. And that's why I talk a lot about immersion to my clients. So you immerse yourself in why you're doing it, because that helps you overcome that period of self-doubt that you might have, or where you start talking negatively to yourself, or should I do this? You know, you might have had a particularly hard couple of days on prep or whatever, and you sat there and you're going, oh, why am I doing this? What am I? And go deeper into it, rather than just say it as a feel sorry for me statement. Actually go into it. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What is the reason I started? And really go deep into it. And hey, sometimes it may come out that the reason you started it isn't why you're there now and why you want to carry on, or why you don't want to carry on. And maybe it might be time to stop. But also the reason can be solidified as why you're here, why you want to do it, how important it is to you, and how proud and great you're going to feel when you achieve whatever it is you want to achieve out of the sport.
Yeah. And touching on that, you know, we are in a privileged position to be able to prep. And I always believe that, you know, when there's so much pissing and moaning, especially on things like Instagram, yes, it is fucking hard. Like you say, it's an extreme sport. But in order to get to stage condition where you need to be competitive, this is what's required. But this is a choice. And, you know, there's people in the world that can't afford to eat. And we are choosing to limit what we eat, go into a deficit and get to condition. And I always try and get this message across, because it is such an amazing thing that we're able to commit to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it isn't cheap. So, you know, you're blessed to be able to do the sport. So you've got to enjoy the process. And I've always said, if people aren't enjoying the process, stop. Not if you're just not enjoying it for a small period of time, because we all go through that, you know. But
Bad day.
if you constantly enjoy, it's just torture for nothing. Stop it. Move on. Don't feel you have to carry on because so and so or Julie from down the road, you feel you're letting her down, or your mates. You know, hey, you give it a go. Go and do something else. In terms of getting over those self-doubts and stuff, I always say as well, another good little technique is always to check your progress, right? So look out for the signs of progress on your journey along the way, right? Because what people do is they tend to forget that. They are working hard, they're doing their thing. And I get this with clients quite often. And then they'll come and they'll have a bad week and they'll say, oh, I feel like crap. And looking at them online and they look amazing and stuff. And they've forgotten where they're at. And I say, go back and look. Go back a year. Watch what you've done. Look at your progress. Look where you're at. So monitoring and checking for signs of progress along the way helps you get over those bouts of self-doubt and negativity, because you've got to be able to see that actually, hey, we are still moving on, because the competition isn't between you and the others. The competition is between you and yourself. And you've always got to say that to yourself. You've always got to think about that. Again, everyone who works with me, that's something we talk about all the time. It's just beating the version of you from yesterday is what's important. So when you keep checking, you know, weekly, monthly, you have check-ins and everything anyway. So you've got plenty of pictures, plenty of stats and data to look at. Check your progress, and it might be strength progress, it might be size, it might be measurements, whatever it may be. But always check your progress to see that there is signs of progress. And then when you have those bits of self-doubt, you say to yourself, if I keep going on at this rate, in a year or 2 years from now, I'm going to be at Y from XYZ, you know, I'm going to be at this level. So it's really important to do that. Oh, and another big one that I always say to clients, don't compare yourself to others.
Just don't. For a start, you know, you're never going to be someone else. The genetic makeup's completely different. And of course, you don't know what's going into that athlete's journey. You don't know if they're assisted. You don't know their background. There's so much that can affect someone's physique.
Oh, and especially if you're comparing, if you've seen them, maybe half fair enough, but if you're comparing based on social media, you don't even know what you're looking at.
I know, it's mental what can be done on like Photoshop and all of those things.
Of course, lighting, just lighting alone.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the angles, you guys know this, you know, it's everything. And I've seen it so many times. I've had a couple of my clients before, one in particular who may even be listening to this at the time. I remember her having a bit of a mini meltdown, and then she went posing thing, and the day before, so she rung me up and said, I'm not going, I feel like crap, and a few of the people I'm going to be competing against are going to be there and all this. And then she went there and she looked better than all of them.
Yes, yes, this is such a good example.
And she'd been watching them on socials and worrying, and then she got there and she looked better, and she was like, oh my god, I couldn't believe it, I actually looked okay next to all of them, and my posing was better than theirs. And it just shows you that people can, you know how it is, suck it in, turn, twist, put the lights up, and you look at them and go, wow, I don't look like that, geez, because you're sat there watching them with your belly out and, you know, eating your porridge, right? They're the same. They're doing that too. But then first thing in the morning when they're tight and everything, they've jumped up, done some shots, put them out there, and you're comparing your middle of the afternoon after food to their first thing in the morning shot. Listen, these things, that's why one of the biggest things is never compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to you.
Yeah.
How do you look from yesterday, and are you making progress? It's a mindset shift that is huge. Am I making progress? Have I done better than the version of me yesterday and the day before and the day before that? Because if you're not beating yourself, then you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Now you're going backwards. And that's where you should be having a talk with your prep coach or whoever you're coaching with. But they're the things that you should really be focusing on, especially in times of negativity and self-doubt. And then have somebody there who can help you. Seek professional help, yours truly, or have at least somebody who you can turn to and say, hey, how do you think I'm a friend or someone who knows what they're on about, you know, someone you can turn to get advice and to get help, and who you can just offload to, because that is major. And it's a good way of keeping your chemical levels down. You know, you don't want cortisol flying around your body and things. So you just need someone you can relax with or offload with. It might be a partner, as long as they're an understanding partner, because there are partners out there that don't really get bodybuilding. They're like,
Yeah.
what about, you know, so it's really important, those few tips there. They are massive, you know, checking your progress along the way, having someone you can offload to, getting professional help, especially remembering past achievements. That's so important, because people don't do it. They forget quick, you know, how far they've come. They look amazing, you know, 2 years ago they look terrible, and they forget really quickly, and because they're always moving the level of competition. Yeah, but look at her. And then 2 years later, yeah, but look at her. Now you're looking at British champions and stuff, and you're going, what are you on about? Just focus on beating you. Remind yourself why you're doing it, and just remember that everything is figure outable.
Yeah, with being a coach, you know, for me, what you've just outlined there, that is so important to me with working with clients. And I do get people say, oh my God, you know, you're on hand, I can talk to you about anything. And that's what it should be. You know, if you're looking for a coach and actually you've got perhaps limiting self-beliefs, you know, there's stuff going on that you could maybe work a bit deeper rather than just, I'm going to do a prep, that's it. You know, maybe look for a coach that's a little bit more personable and that you can work on your self-development as well as committing to this bodybuilding lifestyle. And remember, you know, there's different phases to bodybuilding, and there's time. The stage is always going to be there. So you may think, I want to go into a prep, and then it might be that you go into an improvement phase first and then you go into a prep. There's options, always options. You know, you don't have to pressurize yourself to, I'm going to get shredded, that's the only way.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people do though, don't they? Right. And they
Sure.
want to look fantastic all year round, and don't we all? Hey, you know, it's great.
It
But
would be lovely.
one of the things I talk a lot about as well is with clients is that the mindset we shift on, and it's not a mindset, I call it a perspective shift. You've got to shift your perspective. And everyone who works with me, we always start with perspective, because the ability to be able to shift your perspective is really, really important. Shift the way you see things. And one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients, especially in off season where they're feeling fat and crap and whatever, is I said to them, you've got to shift your perspective from being a normal everyday girl or woman to being an athlete. And it's a major mindset shift. It's a perspective shift. It's saying, I'm an athlete. You know, when you walk down the road, of course, you're not going to look how you might really want to look, but you're an athlete in preparation for the next season, right? So you're going to walk around a couple of stone heavier than what you normally are or whatever, and you're in your build phase or whatever. It's no different to a woman's England rugby team player walking down the road and being enormous and thinking, oh, everyone's looking at me or whatever. You're a professional athlete. And once you can make that shift, it makes life so much easier. It just changes the game because you think, yeah, I'm an athlete. I'm not trying to be like Mary over the road who's looking at. I'm not trying to be that. You know, on my day, I eclipse Mary over the road, right? But to get to that, I have to be this as well. That's being an athlete, and there's probably 4 or 5 stages of my body throughout the year that's going to be there, and that's just how it is. And you have to decide, yes, I'm an athlete. That's what it is. This is what I do, and that's it. Remember, the game is. I say to everybody, you probably get a 10-year hit in this game, and it's a short period of time. So it's a case of sucking it up and saying, okay, I'm going in, but if I'm going in, I'm going all in. And that's what you've got to do. And that's where results will come. When you've got that mindset of all or nothing, results start to come. The universe conspires to help you then, because everything gets out of your way. And you just, you get over insurmountable odds because you're so committed to the cause. You just don't care anymore. You just do it. You make it happen, and you don't let the small stuff affect you and get you down and weigh heavily on your shoulders, because guess what? You're an athlete. That's what you do.
It's like off season though, isn't it? Especially, I'd say more for females, although males as well. People get scared to push up, and I've been there in the past. Don't get me wrong, I've wanted to just keep prepping, but I actually made the transition from placing top 6 to winning a show, from committing to a slightly longer off season, because I was able to push up. I pushed up to an uncomfortable spot. It isn't comfortable when you're gaining body fat as well as trying to accrue muscle tissue, but it's that extreme of bodybuilding. You're going up and then you're going to the extreme lean levels, but it shows on stage. And really, like you said, going in on an off season as well as a prep is very, very important.
Absolutely. And I get what you say. For women especially, it's tough because you want to look feminine, you want to look attractive, you want to feel great, but again, it's just a shift in perspective. You've just got to say, I'm an athlete. What do you want? You can't have everything in life. You can't have both. You just can't. So once you understand that, and then once you buy into that shift in perspective, then you can move on, hopefully do what you're doing and say, wow, yeah, I'm an athlete. This is what I'm doing for the next XYZ years. I'm going to commit to this course of life and this course of action, and that's it. And I'm going all in, because there's no point half sticking a toe in and allowing that negative limiting belief to hold you back, because you're still not looking how you want to look, but you're also unhappy. So you may as well, instead of sticking a toe in, dive all in, get really wet, dive in, and okay, just say, I'm going all in, and then owning it. And that way, you're still not going to look how you want to look, but you've owned it. You're walking down the street with your head up, your chest out, and you're going, yeah, this is who I am. This is it. I'm an athlete. And then if you do get into a situation where you talk to people, you say, hey, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm after, oh, right. Okay. Yeah. What's that all about? And you know what people are, I like to ask questions. So own it, enjoy it, be proud of it, because deep down, most people would love to be able to look like that just once.
It's crazy as well, because you get people comment and say, oh, you look really good when you're outside of prep, and you think, the first thought is, no, I don't look good. In the past, I've really had to try and deal with that, because it's like, for God's sake, give yourself a break. But you touched on earlier, you hit one perhaps achievement or accolade or whatever that may be, and then you're looking for the next one, and you don't actually go, fucking hell, I've just achieved my first goal in bodybuilding. You go, right, what's the next one?
Yes, absolutely. And you've got to be aware of that. I mean, the mind can play tricks on you, and it really can, and it'll beat you up if you allow it. That's why you've got to check the thought as soon as it comes, whatever the negative thought is, You've got to check it. You've got to ask yourself, is this real or is this me being irrational? And then even if it's real, quite often it's something you can get by, right? So you check the thought, you see if it's real or not, and then you go past it and replace it with a positive one that serves you, because those thoughts aren't serving you. So you go to yourself, okay, like you've just seen someone, for example, let's take a real one, right? So someone may be listening now and thinking, yeah, but I actually have seen someone online and they look freaking awesome. What you on about? I can't stop thinking about it. What are you talking about, Rob? You know, okay, right? So that's real, right? There's somebody there, you've looked at her and she's freaking awesome, and you totally believe she's better than you. So what? Go back. So now what thought can you give yourself that is serving you, not hindering you? So I would get them to reframe that thought and say, okay, this person's better than me. So what areas, you know, what am I deficient in? And this is stuff they should be working on with their coach anyway. What am I deficient in? And what can I do to make myself XYZ better than what I am right now? What is it I need to do? Do I need to go all in on my quads? Do I need to go all in on my back? Do I need to do whatever it is you've been talking about with your coach, and focus on that and just say to yourself, over the next 6 months, I am going to have unbelievable
Quads,
biceps, whatever it is, quads, whatever it is, you know, glutes, whatever it is, don't matter, right? And just focus on that, because once your focus is extrinsic, once it's outside of you, you're out of control. You're totally out of control. You cannot control what Julie, the other bodybuilder, is doing, because it's not you. But once you then take the control back and start looking intrinsically, right, and look within and say, okay, what is in my control? I can control what I put in my mouth. I can control my food. I can control my training. I can control these things. So I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to try and beat me from last week. And I'm going to be better and better every week. I'm just going to beat me. And I'm going to put my head down. I'm not even going to look up. I'm not going to look at all those other people. I'm just going to put my head down for 6 months. And then when I put my head above the parapet and have a look around, it's going to be like, damn, is that me? Shit, I look good. Because you've been able to super focus on your training, on you, and not be derailed by looking at other people, and maybe lose a day here, a day there, 2 weeks here, a week there, a week here. That is detrimental to your training. You need to focus on you and beating you, period.
Don't you love it as well when you work with a coach, like you say there, when as a coach, when you give feedback and you do, you know, for me, it might be comparisons on photos. For you, it will be, you know, maybe where they first started, what the tools they've learned and picked up. And when you give that comparison, whatever form that is in, you know, the recognition that they get, and then the empowerment that they get from realizing, actually, like you said, where did you start and where are you now? It can be phenomenal changes, but you do forget when you're on this journey sometimes.
Massively. I've got one client who won a couple of shows last season, and they had a major meltdown afterwards. And that was only like, I think about 4 to 6 weeks into their off season after they'd won. You know, they've gone from holding up a sword to, oh my God, meltdown, you know, I look shit, blah, blah, blah. You look, it happens to everybody. I've had everybody who's in the game out there has had those doubts, and I've worked with a lot of the top ones and quite a few of the pros and all that. They're all the same, but it's how long you allow that to keep you down.
Amen.
How quick can you get yourself back up there? I'm not saying everyone needs to be robots and they should never have this. Everybody has self-doubt. I still, like I said, I have self-doubts. But now the length of time I'm in it is literally like a minute or two. It's nothing. I don't, honestly, I joke about it. I say to my friends, I could come home and my house could have burnt down. And I literally won't let that do me in for, no, that one, I might give myself an hour.
It's like, it's almost like that mentality of, I say between me and my other half, you know, it is what it is.
Yes, it's a great statement. It is what it is, because it is. When push comes to shove, the fact has happened. Yep. Whatever the fact is, the fact of life has already happened. So dwelling on it is just holding you back and wasting time. However, we are human beings, so we are full of emotion. So we have to express an emotion. So that's fine. But what I'm saying is, like a pig in a pig pen, they love rolling in their shit and their mud, don't they? They love it. They literally rub it all over themselves. They love it if you ever see it. Well, that's what some people love, rolling in their problems. They love it. They literally complain about it all the time. Everyone listen to this. You've all probably got a friend or know of someone who's always whinging.
There's
right?
always one.
There's always one. And if you haven't got the one, that means it's you.
Yeah.
Right? I always said to people, if they go, no, I don't know anyone who's like that, I go, well, sorry to say, but it's probably you, There's always one. Look, there comes a time where you've just got to accept what the problem is and then look for solutions. It's that simple. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not saying don't be human, don't have emotion, don't be down, don't be depressed, don't look on Instagram and see that person and think, oh my God, or watch the Olympia and go, oh my God, I'm so far away from that. It's ridiculous. It doesn't matter. We can all have those feelings, but then you get back on the horse and you go, right, okay, what do I need to do to make me a better version of me and become the best version I can possibly be? Because once you shift that belief about where you can go, everything changes. Like I said at the beginning, we only live up to the belief in our potential. So you have to find a way to shift your belief in what you can achieve, because then you'll shift what you can actually achieve. Until you do that, you'll never get past it.
And of course, very similar, you can only control what you can control, and trying to control uncontrollable situations, like you say, if your house sets alight, if you're out and that happens while you're out, there's nothing you can do about that. But your reaction is what's going to be, how you're going to feel moving forward from whatever obstacle you're facing.
It's how you can control it. I always use the analogy. I think I've mentioned this to you before. I don't know if it was you or so many podcasts. I don't know, but I always talk about if say after this podcast I walked outside and my car's been stolen. I always say that would get me down for I'd give it a minute, and that is only because I need to nip to the shops after this, and I'd be pissed off because my car's gone, right? But I just look at it very quickly and I think, okay, car's gone, I'm insured, I'll get the insurance, I'll sort it out. And then I'd think, right, okay, actually, I'm going to get insured and paid out on that anyway. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a little bit towards that, and I'm going to get the next model, the new model that's just come out. And now I've gone from my car stolen and pissed off to, hey, I'm getting a new car.
Very nice.
Do you know what I mean? So this is what I talk about when I teach people to shift their perspective. There's always a positive you can find in almost anything, I mean, I had a head-on car crash. I was airlifted to hospital. I had a year off work. I nearly died. Everything was horrendous. And that was the turning point for my whole life and got me to where I am now. So it's always a positive that you can find. That point where I couldn't work for so long and I was in limbo gave me so much thinking time about my life and where it was going, and help me make the decision to start coaching that I'd put off for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it made me realize, look, you're at scratch. Might as well go now. Yeah. Right. It doesn't matter what happens. And I'm not saying it in a flippant way. Again, I understand there's people probably listening to this right now who split up with partners or lost a home, lost a business. Things are going wrong. Things are tough. We're in a financial crisis. Right. I get it. But it's not serving you wallowing. Is what I'm saying. So there comes a point in time, have a nice wallow, really be that pig and rolling it for a while, right?
Rolling your own shit.
Yes, but then make sure you go, okay. Say it out loud, shout it out. Okay, that's it. Enough is enough. If you're listening to this and you're going through tough times right now, I want you to stop the tape, stop this thing, wherever you're listening to it, recording, whatever, stop it and just say to yourself, enough is enough. What am I going to do? I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to start that process of change today and make that change, even if it's small, even if it's just going on Google and searching for something, or, checking something out, ringing and making a reservation, or making an appointment at the doctor's, or making an appointment with an estate agent, or whatever it is. But make that change today and decide enough is enough. I'm not going to wallow in this anymore. I'm going to move on. I'm going to change my life. And honestly, it's so freeing making a decision. But a real decision. I think the Latin word decision is in there is I forgot exactly what it is, but it means to cut, and it means to cut off totally. So when you make a decision, you have to cut off from the previous thing and then follow it with an immediate action.
Yeah, and
To
commitment.
really solidify that you've made a decision. So even if it's something you can't do straight away, there's always an action you can do, even if it's as simple as getting a pen and writing down what you're going to do next. Because when you make a decision and then follow it with an action, you wire your brain to realize that actually we've started the process. Yeah. So now it wants to carry on the process. Because as we know, everything in life, the hardest bit about it is starting. Hardest bit about going to the gym is going. When we're there, we all love it. It's going, you know, you open the curtains, it's dark, it's cold, it's icy, you go, oh God, I can't be bothered with it. But once you're there, hey, you can't get out of the place. You have to stop yourself, right? Yeah. It's the same with anything. Once you start, you know, having to clean the house, nobody wants to do that. Nobody. But once you get going, oh, do you? To be fair, right, I'm a little bit of a cleanaholic. I must admit, I do like a good bit of clean. But once you get going, you start thinking, right, I want to take the whole house to, you know, I want to do everything. It's crazy, right? So the hardest thing is getting going. So get started. When you make a decision, follow it up with an immediate action, no matter how small that action is. And what it does is it just says to the brain, we've started this process and it's easier to keep going, rather than like somebody who never works out saying, right, do you know what? Yeah, I've just listened to that Rob guy. I'm going to go in the morning. And then they toddle off and go and watch TV or whatever. They won't go because their brain will revert to type in the morning. But if they say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning, and then they get up, follow it with an immediate action, and they go and get their bag, put their kit in, put their trainers in, whatever, put it by the door, say, I'm going to take that to work with me tomorrow. Or if they're going in the morning, I'll put it at the bottom of my bed. That's what I'm going to, you know, as soon as I get out of bed, it's there in front of me. And I'm going to start the process, or I'm going to ring John, my mate, and say, hey, I'm off to the gym tomorrow. Do you want to start with me as well? Let's do it together. Whatever it is, start it with an immediate action. And it's so much easier to make a decision that way.
This definitely relates to, you know, what we were talking about earlier of realizing how far you've come as well. You know, like with starting the gym, I have a lot of clients that get to a point where, you know, all of their aspirations are placing based and they want to, you know, gain accolades in the sport and what have you. But when you look back to 2 years ago, they wouldn't have even stepped in a gym, you know, and Absolutely. They've achieved that. They're then going to the gym 5 times a week. They couldn't cook maybe, and then they're food prepping every day. All of these little wins that seem little are really big to empower yourself and keep trying to work on that self-belief. And the example you gave earlier of the posing workshop that your client went to was gold, because this is something that I try and say to people, you know, go to things like posing workshops and actually look at the competition and try and be objective and go, okay, like you say, has she got more quads or has she got more delts? I can work on that and let it fuel the fire as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'd be surprised that most people, they look pretty sort of similar. They're not, it's only every now and then you get someone who's outstanding, and they're probably not even in your class anyway, you know. But in general, you know, if you're in first timers, you're all pretty much going to look similar. If you're in, you know, going for a Britain, you know, you need to be at the top end of the scale. It's as simple as that. And if you're in the middle, then most people are going to be. It's the mind that runs away with you that does these things. But in years of the game, nothing changes. People are similar standards at similar levels. Every now and then you do get an anomaly, granted, but that's once every 5 or 6 years you get someone who's a complete freak of nature. Yeah, and they just blow away, but they're going on to, you know, some other thing. But that should still not even affect you. Listen, the human experience, the name of my sub company, the human experience is such that we all think this way. We do that. It's natural. But what I'm saying is, don't wallow, move on, make a decision, move on, and roll those sleeves up and say to yourself, okay, what is in my control, not what's out of my control. What's out of your control is exactly that, out of your control. Move on and do what you've got to do. Christ, you know, when I first started coaching, I used to not want to write posts because Tony Robbins, I used to think, oh my God, his are so much better than mine and so much more articulately written. And for those of you who don't know who Tony Robbins is, he's probably the number one in my field in the world. He's a billionaire. He's a philanthropist. He's the godfather of this game. And comparing myself to probably the best guy in the world at what I do, it's insane. I was just starting out. You know, I wasn't even the best life coach or mindset coach in Leeds. Never mind the world. Do you know what I mean? So it's easily done. Your mind, it's like Christ. If Tony Robbins was reading my posts, I'd be chuffed. You know, never mind if he was dissing him. I'd be chuffed the fact that he even knows who I am, you know? So we can slip into these things. I've seen clients who've done one show comparing themselves to Olympians. You know, it's the same thing. It's the same level, you know? You're way off. You're way off. Compare yourself to you, and it helps with doubt, self-doubt, and negative thoughts. Get back to self. Get back to, where am I now? I often do it even when I look at some coaches around the world and stuff, and I think, wow, should I be at that level now? Should I be there? And then I get back to self and I go, okay, where was I 2 years from now? And I think, oh wow, yeah, you know, I'm doing so much better than I was then. I'm so much further on, you know. It's crazy to think of that development, but you forget, you lose track, because every time you move up, you just move up the level of people you're comparing yourself to. You're not, you know, you were comparing yourself to people down here when you started, but then it's weird that 2 years on, why don't you still compare yourself to this person? You don't want to anymore. You want to compare up here. So that in itself tells you that you've moved on.
Yeah.
And you should be glad that you're now able to even think about comparing yourself to someone who's a bit further on than where you were before. It's all about
bodybuilding, isn't it? Yeah, it's the journey. I feel, you know, as a coach and myself, the journey is what keeps me going. What I learn, you know, every prep, every growth phase, all of those areas of discomfort, I see as, what can I learn from this discomfort, rather than, fucking hell, this day's terrible, you know, this is prep's really hard, I'm thinking, what could I learn from this day, this really hard day? Or is it just a case of sometimes I need to just get through this day, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I said it's human emotion, and emotion is part of everything that drives behavior. So you've got to allow it, but don't wallow. It's that simple. Learning, having the ability to learn from those things, like you were saying, is a skill in itself. It's an art, and it's something, again, I talk a lot about, but it's something where you have to be able to look at what's going wrong objectively. And it's hard to do. It's hard to,
very hard.
I call it going to third, where you almost come out of yourself and look down on the situation that you're having and be able to do that. And it's difficult because when you're emotional and you're in it, you just see it for what it is. But like you say, if you could step back and just say, okay, that's gone wrong, or that's not too good, or this isn't working out for me, what can I do? What can I do? Because that's all that matters. Solutions. That's all that matters. The fact is, like we said, it's already happened. The fact has happened. You can't control that extrinsically. That's happened. But what you can control is intrinsic. It's you. The only thing you're 100% in control of is your attitude. That's it. So what's your attitude? What's your mindset going to be towards the thing that you're worried about?
And this, in regards to setbacks, you know, it's what you frame it as, it's what you see it as. And probably the best example for a bodybuilder would be getting injured in a prep, say. And you know, this is very common, again, because you're going into a severe deficit. You're going to be more at risk of injuries. You know, things can occur, or potentially something like a family trauma. Now, it's how you look at that and how you move forward, bearing in mind the stage is always going to be there, like we said earlier. What are we going to do to overcome this? And, you know, if you need a bit more time, if you need to pull out of prep, like you mentioned earlier, people sometimes try it, they come away from it, and they may go back to it. It's about how you look at these situations.
Absolutely. It's, again, that's perspective. So that's why it doesn't matter if I'm working with people in small businesses, self-employed, people who are online coaches, whatever they are, or whether they're in sport or whether they're in business per se, standard traditional business, I always start with perspective, because everything in life, for me anyway, starts with your perspective. How you see the world and your map of the world, your model of the world, and how you interpret that is different to everybody else. You and I would interpret the world differently because we're different ages, we've had different socioeconomic backgrounds, we've grown up differently. I'm black, you're white, it's different, it's just socially different. So our perspective on the world is slightly different, right? Once you can learn to shift that perspective and practice doing that, so I get clients practice looking at things from a different point of view. And when you get good at doing that, you get good at then doing that when bad things happen. You get good at analyzing it and not taking it at face value. It's not personal. It's not anything like that. It's just life. Life's tough. And, there's a great book, actually, another one. I always refer to books because, as you can see, I read so many of them. But The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. I haven't read that for about 20 years, just come to me. But The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. Funny story behind it, actually. The reason I got that book is, it's quite weird. Back in the day when the Spice Girls were big, so some of you listening will be like, who?
Oh, I love the Spice Girls.
who gonna love the Spice Girls? So back in the day when they were big, I only kind of followed them because one of them lived in Leeds and I knew some of the people who she hung around with. But one of them was photographed on holiday. I think it were Baby. I can't remember which one, but they were photographed on holiday and they had this book in a bag and you could see the book next to them. And I'm an avid reader and I just wondered what the book was. So I zoomed in on it and it was The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. So I thought, I want to check that out. What is it? Right? Why is she reading that? Because I like the title, The Road Less Traveled. And I thought, that's something I talk about in personal development. The road less traveled is the hard road. That's usually the right road you want to be on. So I checked it out. Anyway, the first sentence literally in the book, if I remember rightly, I think it is the first sentence, says something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, but says something like, life is hard, full stop. And then it says something like, once you truly understand and believe that life is hard, then in effect, life is not hard anymore.
So
and
true.
It blew me away. It just blew me away. And that was it. I had to read the book. And it was so true. And even up to now, I keep teaching that, because when you can shift your perspective, this is why I'm not being flippant when I say if I came home, my house would burn down, or my car's been stolen. I've gotten good now. Obviously, I've taught this for a long time, but I've gotten really good now at flipping my perspective on things and seeing something different out of the bad, because I understand that life is hard. It is hard. Shit's gonna go wrong. It's not personal to me. I could go out here and crash my car at the bottom of the road. It's not personal to me. It's just another thing. When I had my perspective is like this. When I had my car crash, and I was airlifted to hospital and all that, and it's the worst thing that could happen. My family were frightened and everyone came rushing to the hospital and all, it was the worst thing in the world. And my perspective was, somebody somewhere is reading about this in the papers and they've just flicked over it. They've read it and gone, oh, someone's had a crash, airlift to hospital. All right. Okay. And now they're reading sports page. It's of no interest to them whatsoever, right? Because it's just another crash. Because life, everyone expects there to be accidents or a problem or something. It just happens. That's what it is. In fact, it'd be bigger news if there was none for a year.
And everyone was really happy.
And everyone was really happy for a year. And there was not one accident. Yeah. That would be insane. Everyone would be like, why is there no problems?
Is everyone okay? Because it's almost like there isn't. They find a problem.
It'd be insane. It'd be insane. People would be thinking, what's going wrong? Is there going to be an Armageddon or so? Why has nobody had a car crash in a year? No one in the world. Why? So once you shift your perspective to that and realize that life is hard, like it says in the book, life then really becomes not hard. Because when things go wrong, it's not person. It's not, oh, look, oh, this has happened. They've stolen my car. Oh my God. It's, oh shit. Yeah, it's happened to me now. Oh, well, okay. What do I do? This is what insurance is for. Okay, let me get that sorted. Hey, why don't we upgrade the car? It's just how it is. Listen, and again, I'm going to caveat this before people start screaming at the computer or whatever and saying, yeah, but I am actually going through a lot of shit here, and I've got 2 kids, and I've this, that, and the other. I've been through all of it. I've got 4 kids myself, and all of that. Whatever problem people have been through, I've probably been there myself. I've been bankrupt. I've lost my business. I've built it back. I've lost money. I've had lots of money. I've had no money. I've lived in a 1 room up till 9 years ago. People don't realize. When I teach this stuff, they think, oh, it's all positive thinking bullshit. It's not. I lived in a 1 room squat 9 years ago, right? I had no money. My car was 500 quid and I could literally put no petrol in it. I had nothing. I was starting from scratch, and it was not long after it was the car crash that did it all. And, I had to build myself back. Now I live in a very lovely area in North Leeds, and have a fantastic life, and I'm privileged to be able to work with people around the world and earn a 6-figure plus lifestyle from doing this. But I had to roll up my sleeves and accept that life is hard. Nobody's after me. It's just how it works. Yeah. It was just the thing. Get on with it. What's your solution, Rob? What are you going to do? And once I realized, right, this is what I'm going to do. I want to be coached. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I am responsible for everything that happens. And once you can take that responsibility and just say, right, what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to be better than I was last 6 months. And just keep trying to be better. That's it. That's all. That's the secret for me, for life, for everything. And if you're a bodybuilder and you're saying, do you know what? I want to be great at this sport. I want to just do as best as I can. Just beat you. Don't focus on anyone else. Those doubts and things, they're going to come, but just tell yourself everybody else is having them. And I don't care who they are, right up to Olympia level. They're all having them, right? Just be a better version of you, and you'll do absolutely fine if you keep genuinely trying to be that better version of you.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into this sport. There's so much you can learn. And of course, like you've said throughout the pod, there's levels to this. So when you first start out, a bit like when you first just start training and tracking your food, you're laying the foundations of what's to come, and then you can get excited about the next stage and maybe being a bit more intensive, a harder training plan, maybe following macronutrient targets, things like this, and keep building those layers to your own little masterpiece. And then you can extend a house, you can buy a side house, you can have a big parking area, all of these things. You like a house, like life, you can build the levels and really, really try and enjoy the process as well. And like we say, prep is very hard, but I think that sometimes you can get a little bit too intricate in regards to it being, this has to be very, very hard every day. You can enjoy it at the same time. Of course, not every day it's going to be like that, but it is a sport that we are blessed to be able to commit ourselves to. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And you've got to look at it like you're blessed. You've got to look at it like with gratitude. I get to do this, not I've got to do this. And I think some people dine out on the hardness of it, and they love just writing Instagram posts about how hard it is. They love whinging about how tough the prep is. Some people overdo it. There are tough days, and I even tell clients, tell people about it, that share that. It's good to get it out. It's cathartic. It's almost therapeutic, but
in the right way.
But not every post, get over it.
Think about how you write it.
Yes, and how you write it, and have something positive entwined in there. Moan about it, but then say, hey, at the end, I'm driving through this. I'm going to get there. Have something that inspires people. Don't just drag people down and leave them there for the day. Like, oh, I'm a fan of yours and you've just nailed me for the day, Always give them an uplift, because at the end of the day, yes, it's hard. But like you said, you chose it.
Yeah.
Get over it. Life's hard. Like the book said, life is hard. But once you truly understand and believe that life is hard, life suddenly becomes less hard.
it's like that saying, isn't it? When the wind changes, adjust your sails. Don't be scared to change the direction. And something else I try and empower clients with, and I'm sure you do, you know, sometimes these things happen, these obstacles and challenges, but actually it means that your direction's going to change, and actually that's going to benefit you in the long run. It's not all about the here and now all the time. Of course, we want to be present and living in the moment, but there is planning in something like bodybuilding. What can we gain from this? And what is that going to end up, you know, am I going to be more competitive? Am I going to have learned a lesson that's going to help my journey be more successful? Because there's so many examples of this, but I think you get in that mindset of like, I have to do it this way, but you can change your mind.
Yeah, and that is a perfect example of the book I mentioned earlier, The Obstacle is the Way. The obstacle is the way. Instead of looking at it as just an obstacle, think, okay, how do I go around it? How do I go over it? How do I go under it? How do I, you know, what do I need to do? What's it telling me sometimes? What's this telling me? Like an injury might be telling you you're overdoing it.
Yes.
You know, chill out. You know, the obstacle is the way, you know, and sometimes you've just got to sit back. And that's why, again, you know, I keep going on about it, but perspective is key. It really is. How you look at things determines the quality of your life. Because that input that you take in, what you make that mean, is determine the quality of your life, or the direction, should I say, of your life. Maybe not the quality, but the direction, because it's what it means to you. And remember, we all look at the same things because life is the same as houses, cars, streets, people, but we're interpreting it differently. Bodybuilding's the same. We're all on that journey, but we're interpreting everything totally different. A great example of this, I don't know if I've mentioned this on one of your previous podcasts, but working with some clients, and they was talking about, when we was on about perspective, they was talking about how she took her daughter to the youth club, and she's about 13 or something, and her friend was sat in the back of the car, back of the Jeep, and she had her daughter and she was taking her as well. And they got there, and as they came around the corner, there's a police van outside the community centre. And straight away, in the head of the person driving, said, oh, the police are there, so at least it'll be safe now for my daughter, right? And as she thought it, at that second, the lady in the back who was with her friend, said, hey, the police are there, this looks dangerous.
Yeah. Great.
So it's exactly the same view, but two polar opposite interpretations of what's going on. One, it's dangerous. The other one, hey, this is safe, right? So it shows you this is life. You can choose. And this is why I'm not being flippant when I say it's just choice. You choose based on your socioeconomic background and lots of things that happen when you were a kid and all that. But you're choosing every single day, every moment of every day, how to react and how to think in any given situation. And it can be different to your best mate, your next door neighbor, whatever, because of their backgrounds. But it's the same situation, just like I choose how I feel about my car being stolen or my house burning down. It's the same as what lots of other people have had in their lives, but I choose to react differently because the car's still gone. Right?
Yeah.
The car's still gone. You still have to get on stage at some point. So are you going to sit and ponder and look at Julie online all the time and realize, and looking at her striations and going, oh my God, why haven't I got them? Or are you going to get to a point where you go, okay, what do I have to do?
Yeah. And even if it is that you have to, you know, commit to a growth phase before going into a prep, this is still that mindset of what do I need to do to get there, and being realistic with your expectations. And actually what you said there about perspective, I think could lead on very nicely to maybe another episode where we talk about communication and dealing with external pressures, because those are the two things that stood out there, you know, how we communicate in regards to the different thought processes we all have. I think that would be super cool. If I can get you on again, that would be awesome.
Of course, I'm always happy to come back and share my thoughts anytime you want.
Yeah, for sure. As always, we have a blast on these sessions because it just goes organically, and there's so much that can be covered with self-development. And like I say, I get a lot from our sessions, and I know the listeners do. Now, of course, if anyone wanted to reach out to you to talk about coaching or anything we've covered in the pod, is Instagram still the best place?
Instagram or Facebook, or I'm on all of them. Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, the lot. I'm
I'm a
everywhere.
social butterfly.
I'm everywhere. It's crazy. It's took over my life. But yeah, if they just put my name in somewhere, they'll find it, or Google it, will find it. But Rob Lattie is usually Instagram, Rob ROBLATTI. They'll find me.
Yeah, cool. And I'll put that in the description. But yeah, like I say, awesome episode. And thank you so much for coming on again. I really do appreciate you, Rob. You are a legend.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. It's been awesome. Thank you for having me. Blessed.
Thank you, mate. I'll speak to you soon.